All right, looks like we're live. Welcome to the Accessible Web podcast. This is episode 8, and we are here today with a few members of the Vermont Assistive Technology Tryout Program. So, Ben, Quinby, Phil, thank you for joining us. This is great. This is our biggest group yet on our podcast. So excited about the discussion we're about to have.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes.
George, you have some intros?
Yep. I think Peter's really happy that this is not a legal group.
Right?
We had a string of renowned lawyers, and it was getting pretty technical there for a while. So we're really excited. We had this idea of Vermont assistive technology for a while, and with Phil's help, we were able to wrangle everybody and get some time. So we appreciate everybody's time. We know everybody's busy. So let me get into the intros and we'll get going. We have Ben Wimett, has been with the program as an AT specialist for nearly 7 years. However, Ben has been utilizing the program and its benefits himself for nearly 30 years now. Ben also has cerebral palsy himself and utilizes assistive technology in almost every aspect of his everyday life. Whether utilizing voice-activated technology for typing, the standing function on his wheelchair, or adaptive gun mount he uses that allows him to shoot one-handed when hunting. Ben believes very strongly that you must look at the whole person in front of you and not just their disability and their barriers at hand. In order to have the best outcome, you must look at their whole life and build a rapport with every individual in order to provide the most appropriate solution. Ben has a bachelor's degree in both sociology and American studies from Keene State College. He enjoys hunting, music, photography, volunteering with both the Lions Club in Brandon as the treasurer in Brandon Recreation Department. Eventually, he believes that if there's a will, there is a way. I love that. And Quinby McLellan joined the AT program in October 2020 as an assistive technology access specialist and serves members of the public and folks utilizing vocational rehabilitation services. She is a certified and licensed occupational therapy assistant with experience working with individuals across the lifespan and with diverse needs in communities, school-based and physical rehabilitation setting. She strives to offer a holistic, empathetic, and resourceful perspective when collaboratively problem-solving assistive technology solutions with people. Using a strengths-based approach, she explores tools and techniques to support individuals at home, school, work, in the community, and with recreational interests. Quinby is from New Hampshire, originally received her bachelor's in art history from Bard College and her AS degree in occupational therapy from River Valley Community College. She loves theater, painting, jewelry making, dancing, rock climbing, yoga, cross-country skiing, and of course, gorgeous views from Burlington Bike Path. Last but not least, Phil Seiler has been the Vermont Assistive Technology Director since 2019 after a 20-plus year career in information technology. He was drawn to AT program because of its empowering and life-changing mission and the tremendous team he works with to support all Vermonters. He has a bachelor's from UVM and a master's from Champlain College, and when not working, can be found kayaking the waterways of Vermont or walking his rescue greyhound. And Phil, when I first talked to Phil, talking about this concept, he brought up that his background is primarily IT, but he can gather the right people to really have a good discussion. And finally, the result is here now. Thank you, everybody, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
So I guess to start, what is the Vermont Assistive Technology Program?
So I'll go ahead and take this one since Ben and Quimby are the ones who actually help people, and I'm the one who just does the other boring administrative work. So in 1988, the federal government created the Assistive Technology Act, which was designed to create programs in all 50 states and territories in the United States to get awareness of assistive technology for those with disabilities. It was originally under the Department of Education, to improve education access, but also to improve access to work and more independent living. The act has been reauthorized a number of times, most recently in 2004, and then in 2014, maybe, I think, under the WIOA Act, which was the Rehabilitation Services Act. It actually was moved from the Department of Ed to Health and Human Services and the community ACL, which I can never remember what the A is, the Administration for Community Living, I believe. And so what we do is provide information and assistance on assistive technology to any Vermonter who is interested in learning about what that is. And that is really any device or strategy that can help you live, work, or recreate more independently, and just improve your access to life. So we have everything from a $2 extra long shoehorn from IKEA to very sophisticated eye gaze software, which allows people to type just by looking at a virtual computer screen. So it runs a full gamut, and that's Quimby and Ben's job. So I'll let them talk about it from the perspective of the front line.
I'll go first. I think, as I was mentioned in my intro, I believe, as does Quimby and all of our coworkers, that you have to take a holistic approach when you're working with somebody. So it doesn't matter what they're coming initially to me, to Quimby, to Tracy. It matters what they're originally coming to us for. We want to know what their barriers are, but we also want to know what's in your life that works, what's in your life that is in place that's working for you, but what do you struggle? Maybe you have a barrier with, maybe you have a barrier around work. Okay, we're going to look at that work barrier, but do you also have a barrier in getting to work? Do you have a hard time getting dressed? Do you have a hard time taking your meds? Do you have a hard time, waking up on time because you can't hear that alarm clock? So we really take that, holistic approach and try to help people figure out, well, maybe I'm tired at work because I don't have the support and the assistive technology structure I need at home to help my fatigue level. So we really look at that whole big picture that, yes, we look at the barrier at hand, but we also look at the things that are around that barrier and the things that can be connected to that barrier to really, again, look at the problem at hand holistically and look at the big picture and not just that microscope of the actual problem, but everything that's around it. Then we make recommendations of tools and strategies to try, and it could be something as simple as, oh, you're having a hard time writing, but you need a pencil grip, or I just mentioned that the fact that people don't always wake up for alarms. This is our number one issue with college students. Surprise, surprise. So we a lot of times we get students something as simple as a vibrating bed shaker that they put underneath their bed, and it's instead of a really annoying beep 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 that they don't wake up for, and it wakes up their roommate, and their roommate is angry. They just get a vibration underneath their mattress or underneath their pillow, and it wakes them up, but not everybody around them. And then it could just be a strategy. One of my accommodations during non-COVID times is that when I travel to my office, my work schedule accommodates the the public transportation schedule, and that's a simple accommodation. But we really do take an approach of the least complex and the least expensive first. If we can accommodate somebody's schedule, if we can use tools that they already have in place, but sort of refine them, then we're gonna do that, and we're gonna go up from there if we need to. But we're always gonna start simple. Quimby, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you're talking about the full spectrum, because certainly when you think of assistive technology, you think like, oh, it must be an app on, iPad or some computer program that's really sophisticated. But really, it could be a really broad range. It's such a spectrum of no technology strategies, like Ben had suggested, all the way up to something a little bit more sophisticated. But someone might come to our program saying like, oh, I feel like an iPad would really improve my life for school. But maybe before that person can even access the apps on the iPad, maybe they are having difficulty regulating their sensory system. And they need some tips for focusing at school. Certainly we look at a broad range of things. I don't know if I'm the only one hearing that feedback. I hope you can understand me all right. But we work with folks in the school system. We work with folks in the community. Really, folks trying to maintain a job or look for a job. So really, anything you need to do during your day, you can certainly reach out and we'll brainstorm with you. It's such a collaborative process.
The one thing I want to add as well is you do not have to have a disability yourself to come see us. We don't, for the general public, for our work with the general public, we don't need documentation. We don't need a doctor's note. We don't need any of that fancy schmancy process, paperwork that can really delay getting people services. You could be, James Smith's great uncle's brother, and this person has a barrier and you want to get them help, but they're not quite ready to come in and get it on their own. But maybe they would be more receptive if the family member was the one telling them about it or showing them some equipment to try or whatever the case may be. We can meet with anybody. It doesn't have to be directly the person with a disability if they're not comfortable.
Yeah, Ben makes an important point there. There really are no eligibility requirements to access our program. We're not means tested or anything like that. It's pick up the phone, give us a call, send us an email, and you're into our system and working with one of our specialists. I would also add that some of our core functions that we sort of alluded to but really didn't discuss is we maintain a lending library of assistive technology, which consumers can borrow. So for up to 30 days, not everything that we have in our inventory is available for loan for some sanitary reasons and whatnot. But for the most part, we do have a wide range of things that people can try out. And that's really core to our mission, to see if that assistive technology will actually work for them and make their lives better. Our specialists will also demonstrate items for consumers. So you can imagine we go back to the iPad, and certain iPad apps can be very complex. So our specialists are able to show how they work to consumers, spend that time. We also maintain a website which has a consumer-to-consumer reuse of assistive technology, sort of like a Craigslist. So you can imagine certain bigger items that you maybe don't have use for anymore. Chair lifts, all kinds of bigger things like that. They can either be given away or sold on our reuse exchange. And then finally, we partner with Opportunities Credit Union, and they run something called the Independence Fund, which allows for a very low interest rate loan for consumers to purchase certain kinds of assistive technology that may be unaffordable otherwise.
So is there any cost to go and visit you all, or just kind of the cost might pop up depending on if there's assistive technology that is needed to purchase?
Right. There's no cost to come see us whatsoever. For the general public, um, there's no cost for a loan. There's no cost for demos. There's no cost to come see us. The only time there may be, there's not even cost involved if we need to ship you an item. That is 100% free. We do have very a very small percentage of our work. We can do what we call fee for service work, whereas an organization will come to us and say, I want my organization to be trained on, let's say, making our website accessible. And if they weren't working with you and they asked us to do a training on that, we could, but we would charge them a fee for that. And it's I would say it's very fair. I kind of looked at it, anybody can afford that. We make it if people want to get the appropriate training and we're the people to do it, we try not to make cost the barrier to the right people getting that training. But the vast majority of our services are free and have no cost. The only thing I do want to bring up, and I'm sure that if I didn't fill one, is that we don't directly sell anything. We're not allowed to do that. But what we can do is we can point you in the right direction. We can give you a link and say, this worked for you. This is what you like. This is what you want to purchase. But we can't be the ones that purchase it for you and then get, reimbursed or whatever. And then because of our federal guidelines, we cannot say definitively if somebody asks us, do you think definitively this item is going to work for us 100%? We cannot say that because of our federal guidelines. We can strongly hint, but we cannot give a yes or no answer, and we cannot put it in writing or anything like that.
Yeah, I've worked with several consumers back when I worked at the Institute on Disabilities. We were talking before we went live, and the lending library function has been a godsend for so many people with disabilities and their families to be able to, in demonstrations, to see how it works and also to find out what is right for them. And it's absolutely amazing. And if I could see how important it is to get the word out that people can actually try it. And now, is your group, do you get involved if you go through the process, there's a demonstration, they get a loan on a piece of equipment, augmented communication device or whatever, do you get involved in helping them get financing for it, or you just point them in the right direction, or do you need to certify any application, or do you advise or get involved in the application process?
Yeah, that's beyond our scope. We point them to the resources that are available that we know of. But as for going through the process of actually, filling out forms or applying for various funding streams, that's going to be up to the consumer or what other organizations they've identified that can help.
Whether it's health insurance or Medicare or any of that?
Correct.
Yeah.
And same with the beginning of the process. We don't do kind of really in-depth assessment tools that are something that maybe an occupational therapist would use. That's not, within our scope. We have our own sort of way of looking at the whole person and, our own set of questions that we ask to better understand, but we don't, use any sort of standardized assessment tools.
I could see how that probably makes it more comfortable for people to come in and get a demonstration in various things like that. What is your biggest challenge of getting the word out? We were talking earlier of letting people know that you're there and what your services are available, getting that out to the mainstream.
You bring up a very important point, because I think my answer to this question might have looked very different pre-pandemic. because one of our barriers pre-pandemic was all of our services, for the most part, were offered in person in one of our tryout centers. Um, you know, we would do some phone calls if the person couldn't physically get to us, and we had done some video conferencing, but it was really rare. And when the pandemic happened, our hand was sort of forced into, well, we have to use video conferencing, and we we're still not seeing people in person, so we're still doing everything virtually, and it really changed how we did things. And there was definitely a learning curve of a couple months of, okay, we're doing this virtually. They can't touch this equipment. We need to kind of relearn ourselves how to do these demonstrations for folks, how to put them at ease. But once we figured that out, one of the huge benefits was all of a sudden, if you were not, ambulatory, or you didn't have an accessible van to get to or just transportation in general to get to one of our locations, we all of a sudden could come to you. And it's really opened up not only us being more accessible to people, but we've also found that in some cases, not all, but if some people are in their own home, in their own environment, they're more comfortable, so they're going to open up more and give us what we really need to know.
One of our early guests was a lawyer with the National Federation of the Blind, and he mentioned how homes, as things have become digitized, instead of a thermostat that you can twist and you kind of have that tactile feeling, as things have become digitized, maybe it's the controls on your stove or oven, for example, you would think that it would make life easier for folks, but actually this lack of analog controls has made things more difficult. What are you all experiencing with that? Because I imagine most consumers don't come to you for just one piece of assistive technology, or maybe they do, but given this holistic approach that you have, I'm sure it snowballs, and there's dozens of ways to make their lives easier. So what have you found as things kind of have transferred to digital? Are you finding the same thing, that life is maybe getting a little harder, or are you finding that technologies are starting to catch up and things are getting easier?
I think it really depends on the person. I mean, some folks feel much more comfortable just saying a voice command to Alexa versus setting up like this phone that's a landline that might also be voice activated, but has like actual physical buttons and a physical, set that you pull up to your ear. Maybe just like using their voice and saying something naturally makes sense, but like the whole setup process might take some extra assistance. But like once it's set up, like you're good. But other people, like it really depends on their learning style. Like you might have the same, diagnosis or need, coming towards your program, but the learning style is so different between those two people that you're going to recommend completely different pieces of technology, something higher tech for one person to solve that, that barrier, and something, on the other end of the spectrum for the other person.
So Alexa, that's interesting. So are you setting up kind of fully automated homes at this point? Are you on the forefront of all this automation software and hardware and Internet of Things?
I mean, I'll speak for myself. I was, before the program itself was investing in smart home technology. I was part of I'm trying not to use the keyword because I have 3 different smart devices. If I say something, they're all going to turn on. But if I activate my Echo, let's say, I can control my lights, I can control stereos, I can control my TV. And for me, as somebody that's only got one good functional hand, it's really changed my world, because maybe I just got back from Hannaford's or the grocery store, and I've got, grocery bags on my lap, but I don't have that free hand to flip on a light switch, or even even like I have a really receptive landlord to making things accessible, so I have automatic doors for all of the doors that I need to go through, and it's really made me independent. That said, I have a really technical mind, and I'll sit there and read manuals and write my own code to like program things using if this then that and all this other stuff. Some people that's way too complicated for. So getting back to Whitney's point, it's we could see three people for the same thing, and they all have a different comfort level with technology. They may just want something simple that doesn't use technology at all, or they may be like me and want to write their own, if this and that recipes and things like that. So again, it's whatever the consumer wants, and we go from there.
And I will just add on top of that smart home technology is seen seen nationally really as a huge game changer for improving accessibility for individuals. A lot of our other state programs are setting up demonstration smart homes. I believe North Dakota's got a 1,000-foot tryout space simply dedicated to smart home tech. Alaska's been able to do some really amazing, innovative things, and we're certainly looking at for us as well. But the security part aside, which is always something that we have to sort of keep. I put my IT hat back on and get a little worried about that a little bit, but there's no question that it's so enabling if it's done right.
And I think a good follow-up too, Phil, is that when we do a demonstration of, say, a smart home, piece of smart home tech, or something on an iPad, or whatever the item is we have, I'm going to go on a limb and say we have about 2,000 pieces of equipment in our inventory. Whatever that equipment is, they try it out in our perfect little tryout center if they're meeting with us, and it may work great for them, but they get home in their own environment, and it may be their work, it may be school, it may be home, it may be their sister's house for all we know, but maybe that device in our perfect little tryout center that worked great for them, they get it home and it was too overwhelming or it just didn't work. Now, we want to know that feedback so we can go back and say, okay, this didn't work, but what didn't work about it? So we can revisit it with you and kind of look at it with that. That's not a bad thing. From our eyes, if it doesn't work, that's not a bad thing. From our eyes, what's a bad thing is if you get done a 30-day trial, and one of our questions is in a survey, did this work for you? Basically, yes, no, or I'm not sure. What we really want and what we're really looking for is a clear yes or no from the consumer, because if they check the I'm not sure box, we didn't do our job properly. So if people are struggling with equipment when they get it back home, we want to know that, and we want to know, okay, maybe they just need to toggle this setting, or maybe we need to look at a different device or recommendation.
So we've been talking kind of high-tech solutions. When we visited the Assistive Technology Tryout Center in Burlington, we kind of discovered it around 2016, 2017, and went up and visited. And I was really struck by the kind of low-tech devices that were there. There were some power wheels that had been retrofitted so that kids could use them as kind of a fun way to get around. There was a device that had been built to help a woman that was working in a coffee roasting company, to allow her to be the one in charge of filling bags. So what kind of support do you have for low tech devices? And it was almost like a mad inventor's workshop, some of the stuff that I was seeing in there. So what kind of stuff do you do on that front to really make custom hardware solutions?
Yeah, there's a lot of sort of just DIY as part of our job, which is just so fun because, there might be some things that you purchase, off of the internet, whatever website it is, but then it doesn't like fit your body or doesn't fit, your workstation or doesn't fit your chair. So we can kind of go in and use all sorts of tools to, foam and whatnot to make it really fit well. And, the same thing that we had kind of talked before, like some folks might come to us looking for a way to communicate, and they might think, okay, it must be an app on an iPad that will work for me. But maybe there are other pieces about managing the iPad, like remembering to charge it, or not getting distracted by the other apps on it if it's not a designated communication device, or can I use that to communicate while horseback riding? Probably going to be challenging. So maybe there's some low-tech communication boards we can create together that are waterproof, something you wear around the wrist, for example, while horseback riding or while skiing, where you can communicate using the same symbols you would maybe on an iPad if they worked for that person. But certainly we can explore like all sorts of different things. Also like with folks who are trying to access their home in a safer way, and maybe they have low vision, so maybe it's altering the lights, decreasing the clutter, some kind of like basic strategies to start, and then we might create some low-tech pieces in the bathroom so it's easier to find with higher contrast if it's someone with dementia. There's just so many things we can do, and it's a very individual basis. And oftentimes, like, we can even repurpose or slightly alter something they already have. So they're not having to suddenly buy like 10 new pieces of equipment. Maybe there's something that they already have in their house or use for something else that we can repurpose.
Right. One of my favorite low-tech solutions, and we get this a lot. I work in a very noisy environment. Well, where is your desk in relation to the copier, or where everybody gets their mail, or where everybody gets, everybody kind of congregates to chit-chat? Well, it's right there. Well, can we just move your office or move your desk? And, 90% of the time, that works. And there's no technology. It's just a strategy. Oh, we needed to move this employee. Fine. I think one of my favorites that I use a lot is I drop stuff all the time. So I'm using simple things like right now I have a little teeny tiny lanyard that I put around my wheelchair joystick so that if I need to access my remotes from my doors or my car or whatever, I can still do that, but it's actually wrapped around my joystick, so I can still access it. But if I drop it or I have a muscle spasm, it's not going to get chucked across the room. And I've actually showed that to a lot of my consumers, and they went, oh, "I need that." And it's simply, honestly, if your mom or your grandma or your aunt or whoever has a wallet with a little wristlet that they don't use, take it. Those things are great. The one that I use, I got off of like an Xbox controller case or something. It's just like Quimby alluded to, using what you already have is one of my favorite things to do, because it doesn't cost any money. You're just repurposing what's already there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think another example to that. Oh, I'm sorry, George.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, just another example, like I had an occupational therapist come to me looking for some really high-tech solution she was teaching a child kind of cause and effect, just wanted this child to interact with their world. It was a child who was blind and had some other neurological conditions, and they wanted them to interact with their siblings, and this child wasn't really interacting with anything. They're kind of laying in bed most of the time. So they're just looking for, are there some switches where, if they hit this button, it can make this toy go, or, can we record a whole bunch of music and activate it with this high tech, and we did explore those, but then I was also, thinking, well, you can play with temperature, like those warm, like lavender eye pillows that you can heat up in the microwave, or, you can use just like a tambourine, like behind the pillow. And whenever the child kicks or have like little bells around their ankle, that's teaching cause and effect. Or maybe there are, some other things, throughout their day where they can learn the texture of the diaper that they, are often, changing. So just having them exposed to things during their day that, it was much easier to train and teach the family as well when it was low tech and stuff they already have in the house, not having to suddenly like learn how to use all these switches. And then at the same time, the child is learning to interact with the environment that is their home and the objects that they already are using throughout their day.
I had an aunt with low vision, and it was decreasing fairly rapid within a year. And she enjoyed cooking. And she had to stop for a while because she had not an accident, but it was a close call with a toaster oven. And someone from came in and put, I think it was dots of nail polish on the controls of the oven. And it was so simple, but it made her so happy and really changed her life because she was depressed that she couldn't cook, because it was a sign of, okay, she wasn't independent anymore. And it was really something that was a big part of her life. And just something, she thought, she wouldn't stop talking. She was the biggest evangelist in the senior home. Hey, call these people, they'll really help you. And it was such a low tech solution, and it was brilliant. So
is it ever too early to call you guys? Is a family member, if you start to see a family member or a friend or employee?
Not at all. I mean, I'll give another example. Like I've had some folks come to me, looking for strategies to make knitting easier or painting or other crafting abilities, and they have arthritis or early, things like that. And yes, there are lots of higher tech tools that you can explore, but you can also just like use wider paintbrushes or wider needles. Instead of having to do something drastically different right away.
Do you find it more challenging to find solutions for people at home, school, and employment? Or is it difficult to work with employers and make suggestions in the workplace? Do you get more resistance in any three of those areas?
I would say when it comes to employers, they're usually the most, I'm not going to say receptive out of the three, but if an employer is coming to us, usually it's because they've identified a barrier or something that an employee is struggling with, but otherwise they're a really good employee and they want to be able to keep that individual and they want to be able to, keep that individual happy and as part of their team. So they come to us. Usually if we make any recommendations, they jump on them. I'm not going to say always, but that's more often the case. The barriers we do run into, but very, very rarely do we run into a funding issue. We do run into funding issues with schools and individuals a little bit more often. But I want to say that with a little bit of a caveat, because yes, we have iPads, we have apps that can get expensive, and we have, some computer stuff that can get expensive. But most of our inventory, I'm going to say, is $60 or below. So we try to, whatever possible, not have the financial piece be a barrier to success. I'm not going to say it's perfect all the time and we can eliminate it, but that's where, things like for those higher dollar amounts, that's where a partnership with the Opportunity Credit Union can come into play. There are some state funding resources through the Vermont Center for Independent Living that can help folks obtain some of this stuff. it kind of goes back to my point of where there's a will, there's a way. And there's been very few instances in my 7 years here where I've recommended something to somebody that they haven't been able to obtain, because that's part of what we're cognizant of when we're doing our initial kind of meetings and subsequent ones is, am I recommending something that's feasible for somebody to obtain? So we're really cognizant of that.
Yeah, and that's usually part of some of the initial questions too, is kind of like, what programs are you already using, like for work, for example? And, I've run into a barrier even recently where, there are all these sorts of settings you can adjust on your personal computer to, help your vision and other, accessible ways of using the computer, but maybe those programs don't work in the work setting because there are like restrictions or whatever with the program that employer uses. So sometimes there's a little bit of pushback there, but we usually can find a solution, even if it's low tech, that it's something you put on top of the computer or get a larger monitor or something, if you can't zoom into the particular program.
And I do want to say as well that sometimes Quimby and myself and our colleague Tracy, who's not here today, that does what we do in central Vermont and the Northeast Kingdom, our title is Assistive Technology Specialist, but it's very, very hard to specialize in everything in our field. And whether it's Tracy, Quimby, or myself, we don't know everything and we're not experts in everything. So I say that to say that it's very common for us to say that we can provide you this technology, but you also want to work with an occupational therapist or a physical therapist, and we can, or speech and language pathology is another big one, because we do have the iPads available and we do have the software, and we can teach people the software. But I don't have the background to teach somebody communication skills, let's say. So that's where a partnership with, an SLP in the person's area that maybe takes their insurance, or I've even had people that have just believed in our mission and just believed in helping people over the years. So if I get down to, if I make a referral to somebody and they try every avenue for funding, a lot of those SLPs and OTs and PDs, especially if they're private and they work for themselves, they'll donate their time if they've really exhausted every avenue. It's amazing what Vermonters will step up and do for people if they need to.
And remind us where the tryout centers are located around the state.
Yeah, so Ben mentioned his is based out of Castleton, serves sort of the southern portion of the state. Quimby's is in Cherry Street, and the vocational rehabilitation offices next door to the health department. And then our largest one is in the Waterbury State Office Complex, right in the central lobby, and that services the northeast side of the state. Yeah.
Awesome. So hopefully COVID passes at some point and those get reopened, and it sounds like you're all pretty well versed at this point in doing things online in the interim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that the reality is we're going to be hybrid for some time in the future, and it's really been very enlightening to be able to do as much as we could remotely. There's certainly no substitute for in person in certain cases. But it has, as Ben noted, extended our reach, which has been very useful.
Awesome. Well, I'd be doing myself a disservice if I let you guys off without asking you, Ben, what's your plans for the upcoming hunting season? It's creeping right up on us.
Well, actually, here's a good assistive technology piece for you. Last spring, I realized that I could no longer see down the sights of my gun without something happened to my vision, whether it's astigmatism or something in my eyes, or I don't know what's going on, but I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a shotgun, which is pretty bad. So slowly but surely on the fly, I had to adapt and start using scopes and start using what are called red dot sights, where it's really simple. It's like this $40, $50 piece of equipment that I mount on my gun, and it looks like a scope, but it's not. What it does is you sight the rifle or the shotgun in or whatever, and this little dot projects where I want to aim, and it's for some reason it's easier for my eye to see. So I've got to put those on a muzzle loader and on a rifle, and I've got to get used to not having magnification and kind of practice all that. And then last year when the pandemic started, my dad has Lyme disease, and it's kind of progressed and gotten worse. So we realized, and he's not only my dad and my best friend, but he's also my hunting partner. And we realized that if this was going to continue, I needed some help. So I was talking a few minutes ago about Vermonters really rallying behind people and stepping up. Well, I started a GoFundMe for this all-terrain wheelchair thing that's literally a tank that I can drive over logs, drive in half a foot of water, snow, ice, nothing bothers it. It's got these big giant tracks on it. And I did a GoFundMe campaign thinking it was going to take me a year to raise $20,000, which is what I needed for the device, and then a piece of equipment to haul it in because it's so wide you can't put it in a van. And I raised the money in 6 days, and I say that again just to reiterate that if there's a need for a Vermonter and you speak up about it, Vermonters are awesome people, and they really kind of rally around people that really need the help. If you're good to your community's going to be good to you. And for me personally, that was just a wonderful experience that almost a year and a half later, every time I think about it, I get a little choked up because it was really like, whoa, this is going to happen.
Nice. So is this going to be your first fall in the woods with it?
No, it'll be my second, but I did opening day of turkey season last year. I did get a turkey within like an hour and a half of using it out there. So it's very versatile, very quiet, and very stealthy for such a big piece of machinery.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are you hunting? Turkey? I assume deer.
I'll be hunting deer with a muzzle loader. My poor mother. I don't exist from me and my dad don't exist from October through mid-December. I start with muzzleloader, then I go to rifle, then I go back to muzzleloader, and then I might hunt over in New York State if my mom's not ready to divorce my dad yet at that point. But we'll see. Thanks, Mom, for your sacrifices. We appreciate it.
Awesome.
On that note, what can we do to help get the word out of what you're doing and where you are? I mean, what could help in the community just in terms of outreach, of making people aware of where you are and what you do?
If anybody is working with people and they even think they might benefit from our services, give us a call. It doesn't hurt, because the only thing we're going to do if we're not the appropriate ones is we're going to get you a referral, or we're going to give you a number to somebody that is the right person to help you.
Awesome.
Yeah, no question that word of mouth is really our bread and butter. It's people who have had successful contacts with our program spreading the word. So that's really the evangelism that we look for.
Cool. We'll make sure to put all the contact info up in the blog post when we post this live. Post this after the fact, and it'll be on YouTube, and it's on Facebook Live right now. So yeah, we'll put all the contact info, and thanks for all the work you're doing. This is awesome, and this has been great chatting with you all today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was well worth the wait, and I'm glad we were able to do it. I was really excited about this. So was Peter, and we were not disappointed. Thank you very much.
And apologies to
Thank you,
anyone
guys.
watching. I didn't turn on the closed captioning. We had some technical glitches until when we were starting, so I didn't turn on the closed captioning until about 15 minutes ago. So anyway, we'll have a transcript, and my bad. But thanks, guys, and see you next week for our next episode of the podcast. Later, all.
Thank you all for having us and for all the work you guys are doing for accessibility.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you.